Hello and welcome to today's lesson. We're going to be covering topics under the Standard 2.2c in 7th grade and also topics under the Study Island lesson titled Order of Operations. As you're going through these problems, there's one thing you're going to want to watch out for, and it's the fact that addition and subtraction and multiplication and division, when you get to those steps, you do them left to right. So if you're looking at multiplication and division, if there's division before multiplication, you do it left to right. The division would be first. If there's multiplication before division, you do it left to right. The multiplication would be first in that step. So just watch out for that because that's the most common mistake in these problems, and I'll show you some examples where you have to watch out for that. And so just as always, as you're going through these, please be taking notes. If I go too fast, just pause, take your notes, and then press play and get caught back up. There's no harm in that. And then you can also pause at the beginning of the question, work the problem out, and then go back through and watch the video and see, okay, this is where I'm doing really great, but this is where I still need some work. And you can self-check yourself that way. So I'm so glad that you're joining us today, and let's go ahead and take some notes.
So order of operations is parentheses, exponents, and then you do multiplication left to right and add and subtract left to right. This is the order in which you can work out problems with a whole bunch of operations. We have to follow this order in order for everybody to get the same answer. So there's a couple of ways that you can remember these steps. Some people use the acronym PEMDAS, and other people use the saying, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." So where the P stands for parentheses, E, exponents, M and D, multiplication and division, and A and S, add and subtract. Keep in mind that just because the M comes before the D in these acronyms doesn't mean that you always do multiplication first. Remember, multiplication and division, you do it left or right. Same with add and subtract. It will also be helpful to review our rules for adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing negative and positive numbers. So when you're adding positive and negative numbers, if they're both positive, your answer is positive. If they're both negative, you add and they're both negative. So if you're adding them and you have a positive number and a negative number, and the bigger one is positive, you're going to subtract those numbers and the answer is going to be positive. And the same with if you're adding a positive and negative number and the negative number is bigger, you're going to subtract those and your bigger number is going to be, your answer is going to be negative. And then for subtraction, you're going to change the subtraction sign to an addition sign and then change the sign of the second number. So for example, if you were doing 18 minus a negative 6, you would change the subtraction to addition and then change the sign of the second number. So that negative 6 would become addition, would become positive, and now you have 18 plus 6. They're both positive, so you're going to add and your answer is going to be positive. Now, multiplication and division is a little different. If you're multiplying or dividing two numbers that are positive, your answer is positive. If you're multiplying and dividing two numbers that are negative, your answer is positive. If you're multiplying and dividing two numbers where one's a positive and one's negative, regardless of which one's first, then your answer is going to be negative. So here's our first problem. So order of operations, you're going to do parentheses first. Well, I don't have any parentheses, so I don't have to do the P. Now I do have exponents. So I'm going to do that exponent first. So 5 squared is 25. And then I'm going to copy down everything else in front of it and behind it. If you are struggling with these problems, make sure that you are writing them out the same way that I am so that you're not losing operations or losing where you are. You need to write it. I know it's a lot of extra writing, but you need to do it this way. And so I have my exponents done. So now I'm going to do multiplication and division left to right. So here I have 24 divided by 6. So that's going to be 4. And then I have a plus And then I have a 25 times 4. That's going to be the next one I do. And that's going to be 100. And then I have my minus 7. So here, this is what I was talking about. Even though division was before multiplication and M is before D here, remember these two go together. You do them left to right. So I do whatever comes first in the problem. The same with addition and subtraction. So here I have 4 plus 100 is 104. And then I have my minus 7, which is going to leave me with 97, which is choice C. So here I have another problem to simplify using order of operations. So here I'm going to do parentheses first. So inside of my parentheses, I have 6 plus 6, which is 12. And then I'm going to copy down everything else that's before and after it, so I don't lose track of any of my work. So I have parentheses done. Next is exponents. I don't have any exponents in this anymore, so I'm done with that one also. Next, I'm going to do multiplication and division left to right. So I have a minus, minus, and a division. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And then I'm going to copy down everything else that's in front of it. And then I do addition and subtraction left to right. And so 16 minus 12 is 4. And 4 minus 5 is negative 1. So that's going to make C my final answer. If you're having trouble with negative numbers, you can always think of it as a number line. So here we are starting at 4 and subtracting 5. So that means we're going to start at 4 and go down 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 puts us at negative 1. So that's why negative 1 was the answer here. So here's another expression to simplify using order of operations. So first here, I'm going to do my parentheses. So my inside of my parentheses here, I have 5 plus 3, which is 8. So I'm going to have 7 minus 4 times what's in the parentheses, which is 8. And then I still have that cubed to copy down too. So I'm done with my parentheses. Next is my exponents. So here I have 8 cubed, which doesn't mean 8 times 3. Do not make that mistake. It makes 8 times itself 3 times. So 8 times 8 is 64, and then 64 times 8 is 512. So that means here I'm going to have 7 minus 4 times 512. So now I have exponents done. So I'm going to do multiplication and division left to right. So that means here I'm going to be doing 4 times 512, which you may need to go off to the side and do that. And when you work it out, you get 7 minus 2,048. And so now I don't have any multiplication and division left. I'm just going to do addition and subtraction left to right. And so 7 minus 2,048 is negative. I'm going to have to change that minus sign to addition. And then this positive 2,048 is going to be changed to a negative. And so I'm going to subtract those two numbers, and the bigger number is negative. So that's going to make my answer negative 2,041. This problem here, we are simplifying another expression using order of operations. So we're going to do parentheses first. So inside of these parentheses here is 6 minus 4, which is 2. So I'm going to have 17 plus 2, and I still have that squared, minus 5 times negative 4. Now these parentheses around the negative 4, they're not there to isolate an operation such as adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. They are there just to keep the negative with the 4. And so they're not counted in with the P. So I'm done with parentheses, and now I'm going to look for exponents. I have an exponent here. So 2 squared is 2 times itself. So 2 times 2, which is 4. So I'm going to have 17 plus 4 minus 5 times the negative 4. So next I'm going to have multiplication and division left to right. And so right here is the multiplication that I have. So 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. So I'm going to have 17 plus 4 minus a negative 20. Now, minus and negative is the same as adding. So I could change that to a plus. And now all I have is addition. So for my addition to subtraction from left to right, I'm going to have 17 plus 4 is 21 plus 20, which is 41, which is going to make my final answer C. So here I'm simplifying another expression, and I have my order of operations. So first I do parentheses. So here my parentheses says 5 plus 5, so that's going to be 10. So I'm going to copy down everything else. 3 times 2 squared plus 12 divided by 4 minus 10. So I don't have any more parentheses, so I'm done. So now I'm going to work on exponents. So I have an exponent here, 2 squared. 2 times itself is 2 times 2, which is 4. So I'm going to have 3 times 4 plus 12 divided by 4 minus 10. I don't have any more exponents, so now I'm looking at doing the multiplication and division left to right. So here I have multiplication, and here I have a division. So I'm going to do that left to right. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 12 divided by 4 is 3, minus 10. And my last step is to do the addition and subtraction left to right. So 12 plus 3 is 15, minus the 10 is 5. So that's going to make choice D my final answer. So this problem here, I'm using order of operations once again, and I'm looking at doing my parentheses first, but here I have 2 sets of parentheses. So when you have parentheses inside of parentheses, you start with the innermost parentheses first. So I'm going to start with 2 plus 3, which is 5. So I'm going to go ahead and copy down everything else. So inside my other parentheses, I now have 5 minus 5. And so I still have to get rid of those parentheses. So I'm going to do this next set of parentheses next. And 5 minus 5 is 0. So I'm going to have 11 plus 3 and times that 0. So now I don't have any more parentheses, so I'm done with parentheses. I don't have any exponents, so I'm done with exponents. And now I'm going to do multiplication and division left to right. I have this multiplication, 3 times 0, which is 0. And then I have 11 plus 0, and 11 plus 0 is 11. So that's going to make my final answer choice C. My final problem here is the one that's most complicated that you're going to see. So I'm going to write down my acronym for order of operations so I can keep everything straight. And the first thing I'm going to do is parentheses. So here I have a lot of parentheses. So remember, you do your innermost parentheses first, which here is the 4 plus 3 and the 3 squared plus 9. So the 4 plus 3 is 7. So I'm going to have 6 minus 5 bracket 7 cubed minus, and now the second set of parentheses, I have an exponent and addition. So exponents come before addition, so I'm going to do the exponent first. So 3 squared is 3 times itself, so 3 times 3 is 9. So it's going to be 9 plus 9. And then I have my bracket at the end. So I'm not done with this innermost parenthesis yet. I did the exponent first, and now I have to do the addition. So 9 plus 9 is 18. So I'm going to have 6 minus 5 times the bracket, 7 cubed minus 18. And then I end the bracket. So I still have parentheses, so I'm still working on those parentheses. And so when I look in this parentheses, I have an exponent and I have subtraction. So I have to look, okay, I do exponents before subtraction. So I'm going to work on that exponent first. And 7 cubed means 7 times itself 3 times. So 7 times 7 is 49. And 49 times 7 is 343. So that means this is going to be 6 minus 5 times the bracket, 343 minus 18. And so I go ahead and work in that parentheses again, and now I can do the subtraction. So I'm going to have 6 minus 5, and then that 343 minus 18 is 325. And remember that this now is 5 times that 325. So I have my parentheses done. I have my exponents done. Now I'm going to do multiplication and division left to right. So that means I'm going to do 5 times 325, which is 1,625. So I'm going to have 6 minus 1,625. And I'm going to have to change this subtraction to addition. So I can use my rules with adding and subtracting negative numbers. And then the second number, it was positive, so it's going to change to a negative. So now I'm adding a positive number and a negative number. The negative number is bigger, so my answer is going to be negative, and I'm going to subtract those numbers. So my final answer is going to be negative 1,619. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you learned something new.